Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of The Confidence Connection where we share stories of confidence from all around the world. I am joined by two amazing Australians this week. We have Shereen and Hacia who will be joining us shortly. So thank you both for joining us. I know it's super early for you both, but I heard that you guys are both on the 5 a.m. club, so that's awesome. So Shereen, we're talking to Shereen first. She's an inner work life coach who helps people to tap into their unconscious mind to clear past influences and transform limiting beliefs so they can reclaim their happiness and recast the direction of their life. She specialises in helping people to overcome overwhelm, burnout, and stress so they can achieve more success and ease with joy. So thank you so much for being here. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background and how you got to be where you are today?
Yeah, thank you so much for that intro, and I'm excited to be here with you, Bronte. It's beautiful. Morning is good. I get the jobs done early in the day.
That's true.
Yeah, so it's been an interesting journey that got me to coaching, and if you had asked me 5 years ago if this is what I would be doing, not an inkling of it even. So I spent the last 13 years as a high school drama teacher. So in some ways a world away. In others, I think I still just teach people just in a much more intimate way of working one-on-one with people at a deep level. And it's a little bit different to, 13-year-olds running havoc in a room, which is kind of nice now. I generally sit like this on a video chat and it's all nice and calm and I can be in my PJs or whatever. But the reason that I specialise in helping people with burnout and overwhelm and stress is because that's 100% my journey. So I still deal with it at times. I just had a really stressful month now and I'm like, okay, I need to come down from that. But I probably had about 15 years of severe stress and burnout and totally wrecked my body, totally lost any sense of purpose, drive, joy. And it was when I went on a search to find it that I ended up down this path, really.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's like unfathomable that you could, put up with that for 15 years. But I think there's probably so many people out there who are currently and don't even realise that they are. It's only when you stop and reflect that you actually are like, did I just do that for that long? Like,
yeah.
I went through it for about 3 or 4 years and that was more than enough for me. So that's crazy. And you say that you buried your head in your work to avoid social anxiety until you reached that burnout. So tell us about that, how you built up to that 15 years worth and then also the autoimmune disease and brain injuries that all of that caused, because that's something I think people need to be aware of so that they don't let that happen to them.
Yeah, exactly. And I've come to believe that that's my purpose in taking so long to learn my lesson and having these health impacts is so I can help people before they get to my stage. That makes it a little bit more purposeful. I had my late teens and early 20s, a lot of debilitating social anxiety, like getting up every day, I'd feel anxious, going about doing new things. So the way that I found without any other skills to deal with it was I knew what I was doing with work. I'll just focus on work. I'll just do more work, and then I don't feel it so much. Yeah. But you can see already how that's not so great. It's my mind going, this is the only way I know how. And also, if I work really hard, I can say to people, hey, I worked super hard. I stayed back till 11 o'clock last night. I did this, I did that. And that gets me attention. And there's that little part inside all of us that wants love and attention. And if it doesn't know any other way to do it, if other ways are scary because I got anxious, it just kept doing more and more of that. So I can now, in hindsight, see what my mind was trying to do, and it didn't have any better tools. But what happened is I took a really long time to learn my lessons. So I crashed and burned from working hard. And so what happens sometimes when we're in a state of stress all the time is it can fatigue our adrenal system. And that's exactly what happened to me is I overused my stores of cortisol, which is our stress response hormone. So I got to a point then when I get stressed, I just couldn't handle it. I just go into overwhelm immediately. And my body then couldn't handle that all the time. And that's how I developed autoimmune disease. It was just so many years of stress on my body. And it just went, I can't cope anymore. So I developed a thyroid condition. So my body tries to reject my thyroid. And it's been 8 years since I was diagnosed with that, and I'm in a much healthier place now, but I'm still recovering from it. Apparently that wasn't enough to learn my lesson though. And that's when I had an accident and I had a brain injury. I'm fully recovered, thankfully, but it was a 2-year recovery. Guess what? I still didn't learn my lesson then though. When we say, how much we don't realize at the time, I was 9 months after that brain injury, I changed jobs and I was working 6 days a week and 2 jobs because I'm insane. And it was only when someone said to me recently, were you working in that time? I went, yeah, I was working 2 jobs. And I went, crap, that's ridiculous. And it was after a while when I just went, who the hell am I? What am I doing? This can't be the way to get better, that I actually was able to turn things around and look inward to heal more. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so powerful. So how do you heal yourself and also your clients at a subconscious level to increase confidence? How was that healing journey for you?
Yeah, beautiful. So it definitely started with me first, and now I use all the tools and techniques that helped improve my life with other people. So that was the first part of it. And what's really lovely is I say the word heal, but really in some levels I don't like it, because it's not about healing anything, because that implies almost like we're broken. And I don't think we ever are. What I think it is there's a whole lot of stuff from our views, other people's beliefs, values, things we hear and study get kind of dumped on top of us. And it's kind of like the healing journey is removing all the rubble so we can find our true self underneath it. And so what I help people do is, from those moments where that rubble was put on in the first place, we in the subconscious mind, because it's so amazing, it doesn't realize that was maybe 20 years ago or, 5 years ago, whatever. We go back to those moments in the mind and give you what you needed instead for things to work out best for you, because not every moment can be perfect for us. And then we kind of resolve whatever put that rubble there in the first place, so that we're free of that belief system or that limit or that fear that's holding us back, so we can move forward in a more aligned way. And it's so beautiful, the processes. And it's a lot of the time it's talking to our little inner children and giving them exactly what they needed in any moment. Yeah. So it's a lot of fun and it's really beautiful.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And I love what you say that, we aren't broken. There's just a whole heap of rubble on top of us. It's such a good way, positive way of looking at it. Yeah. So do you want to tell us more about, you took a self-development course and then that actually gave you the opportunity to coach others, which led to your coaching business. So do you want to tell us more about that whole process?
Yeah, so it was about 2.5 years ago. And it was at this point where I'd been so burnt out. I'd been so sick and tired for years. I actually had a relationship breakup, and I sat in a room with someone who I knew was an amazing personal development practitioner. And I went, no, I don't have the money to sign up, whatever. And it was a week after I broke up, and I sat there and I went, fuck it. If I don't invest in me now, when will I ever? Excuse my language. Sometimes it needs it. And so I took the deep dive then on me, and it was because I was totally lost. I was like, and I felt embarrassed by the fact that I didn't know how I felt, who I should be, what I should be doing. I went, I should know this stuff by now. I'm 30 something. I should know it all. Yeah. And I should know who I am. And I didn't. And it was really, I felt really stuck and really lost in that. And so I started this journey. And it so happened that this particular course, because of this person had been brought into my life for whatever reason, the beautiful Pip McKay, has a program called Evolve Now. And it's not just a personal development weekend. It's a set of weekends where you actually get a coaching certification out of it. And I was like, oh, well, whatever, that makes it a bit more worthwhile. Yeah. I'm just going to go for me. And as I sat in those weekends, because you learn a process, you go off with a partner and you coach each other. And because there's beautiful healing in coaching someone as well, because we're all mirrors of each other. And I sat there and I went, oh, that's my favorite bit, is when I'm the coach. I love that bit. And it was the fact that I saw the transformation for me, so I knew the stuff worked, and I loved sitting there coaching people, that I went, well, why not do this? Why keep beating my head against the wall with something I'm frustrated with? Why not do something that I love? And that kind of started this new direction in my business and my career, which I'm so grateful for.
That's awesome. And tell us a bit more about your coaching business and sort of what the end results are and how it all works.
Yeah. So my business is called Recast Coaching, and I mostly work one-on-one with people at that deep level. We start by looking at all the negative influences in our life from childhood. So perhaps even if we've had the most loving parents ever in our life, they have not 100% of the time done exactly what we needed in that moment as a child. Like sometimes we might want something and they're trying to keep us safe, but we think that means they don't like us because they've not given us what we want and things like that. So we start by clearing the influence of all these things. We do a whole lot of these deep processes with that subconscious to clear out all the limits and all the blocks, find all the reasons and the stories that we've created to be stressed, to be overwhelmed, to be thinking we're less than. And then we move on to setting some really positive and aligned goals, developing some more self-worth and self-love so people can go out and soar with things. And generally at the end, my clients say things like, I just feel lighter, or it's just easier. And it's beautiful in that you don't always realize how things have changed. They just are. They're just better. Like people go, my sister hasn't done any work, but she suddenly is a better when really it's us that we've changed. And so it changes how we show up in all our relationships. It changes how we go about doing things. I had a client recently, they're still in high school, and she was like, I'm not sure if I want to stay in school, whatever, things like this. And after 2 sessions, came back and she says, yeah, I think I'll just stay in school. It just doesn't seem a big deal anymore. And it just kind of was like it just happened. Her mind just changed and she didn't even know how, just by clearing some of that rubble, which is really beautiful.
Yeah. I was just going to say that you do feel lighter after sessions like that, and that leads perfectly into that whole removing the rubble, because of course you take the rubble off, you are going to be lighter, aren't you? So that all flows in beautifully. Great explanation. So one last question, is there anything you know now that you wish you knew when you were younger?
Oh, so many things. We could be here all day with that. I think the biggest thing is just knowing that it's going to be okay and that you'll get through everything, and that, our mind makes some massive stories about things, particularly an anxious mind like mine, and just that, hey, it's actually going to be all right. And, you can get through it all. There's a saying that I love, you survived 100% of your toughest days so far. And that sort of idea of like, yeah, well, we've got through them all. But every time the mind comes up with that doubt. So just learning that, hey, it is actually okay.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Talk to Hacia now, and we'll see you back here soon. Hello, welcome. So Hacia Atherton is an industry thought leader in courage. She is passionate about how positive psychology can empower the next generation of leaders to achieve their remarkable potential. As an entrepreneur, Hacia focuses on inspiring people to overcome their adversities through her courage, coaching, and speaking. As the founder of Empowered Women in Trades, her passion for courageous leadership through empowerment continues to inspire people across industries, in particular women navigating their professional development within skilled trades. So, that's some great work you're doing. So thank you so much for joining us. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background and how you got to be where you are today?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
So my life kind of restarted in 2017. So there's a pre and post. So pre-2017, I was quite a high-level dressage rider. I was very focused on myself and just achieving my goal of riding for my country, Australia. I wanted to represent Australia in dressage, and I was training with my young horse to qualify for the World Equestrian Games. And she actually reared up vertically during training. I fell off her back and she came over and landed on top of me. And I managed to push her off me and roll over onto my stomach and kind of army crawl out of the way a couple of meters, because I knew she was going to trample me when she stood up if I didn't get out of the way. And then I just collapsed. It was in July, so very cold, middle of winter in Australia, and the arena sand was freezing, and I just collapsed into it. the pain, I just couldn't describe the pain. I couldn't feel either of my legs. I couldn't move either of my legs. So I thought I'd broken my spine. I was airlifted to Alfred Hospital, a big hospital in Melbourne, to be informed that I'd badly broken my pelvis. I'd badly broken both of my hips, including ball and socket, and I sustained nerve damage to my right leg. So that went into a 9-hour surgery, and I woke from that with surgeons saying I may never walk again in any meaningful way. I've got 3 months non-weight bearing, and then we can try to stand and we can try to walk. So 6 months in hospital, and I successfully shuffled out of the hospital doors 6 months later. So I managed to teach myself to walk again, and here we are 4 years later, and now I'm running. But that whole journey, what it really taught me was the power of having a healthy relationship with your fear and rediscovering that youthful courage we all have. When I was in hospital, I was like, well, I taught myself to walk again once when I was younger, and I stood up and I fell over, and I stood up and I fell over 1 trillion times. And I had the courage to keep standing up, even though it seemed hopeless. When you look at little kids trying to stand and walk, it seems like a hopeless task. So I just, went through a whole bunch of different strategies and process. I'm an accountant. I'm a CPA. So I actually used corporate strategy to implement a plan to teach myself to walk again. Which is such a typical accountant thing to do. So I developed all of that, and then also fell in love with positive psychology when I was in hospital, because I was in such a dark place mentally. I'd lost my identity, which was being a dressage rider. I had so much uncertainty in life. I didn't know where it was going, and every day was different. Lots of days there was bad news. Lots of days my health was getting worse. And so I started researching positive psychology just to mentally get myself through that, because I knew my biggest enemy at the time was my brain, I guess. And with so much negativity, although the medical team were doing the right thing and telling me worst case scenario and being very honest with me, it was quite negative conversations because of the state of my health. So just being in that negative space, it's very hard not to go into a negative space internally and give up on yourself.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And I love that you call your story, trauma to triumph. That's such a powerful way. And I think that's so great that you were able to find a way to turn it all around and find something positive to focus on when you are hit with so much negativity, which it's reality, I guess. Not trying to get your hopes up. It's all going to be like that. But that's so great that you're able to find a positive space to go to. So where did you go from there? So once you were out of hospital and you can no longer, perform, dressage, ride, all that stuff, where to from there? Did you just go back to your accountant job, or what happened next?
Yeah, so I started studying my CPA qualification from my hospital bed in hospital, because I thought, well, I can't control my physical destiny, but I can control my mental destiny. So let's focus on what I can control. And so when I left hospital, I would show up to all of the CPA events and a lot of corporate events with my walker or with my crutches. And naturally, people would really ask me what was happening and going on. And I would share my journey and story. And it was very interesting to see the effects on people about hearing that, and obviously the way I was explaining it or something, it would transform them. And a real pivotal moment for me was when I was telling this woman at a CPA event what happened to me, and she burst into tears. And I thought, oh gosh, what trauma have I triggered? What have I done? Like, you should stop talking, Hacia, why do you do this? And she said, thank you. And I thought, okay, this is interesting. What's happening here? And she said, I was about to go through divorce proceedings with my husband. We've got 3 kids. And what I've realized is we're fighting about something that is so irrelevant. It is so meaningless. So instead of booking in with lawyers, I'm going to go book in with a counselor and a positive psychology mindset coach and work through this with my husband. Like, you've just saved my marriage. And I thought, oh my God, Wow. So that really made me think, okay, so that there's something here that I need to be doing in this world outside of accounting. So that's when I started looking into doing keynote speaking and I'd learned a lot about positive psychology, but thought, let's turn this into learning how you coach positive psychology, not just teach it yourself. So I've done some NLP practitioner coaching courses to combine that with positive psychology. Next year, I'm doing a master's of positive psychology as well. So I kind of went from wanting to be a CFO and a CEO and all this kind of corporate to, okay, how can I transition and actually help people in the corporate space? I do a lot of corporate coaching around courageous leadership on how we can lead with compassion and vulnerability and empathy and have that environment where people can really thrive.
Yeah, that's so awesome. That's such a powerful story. And it is funny how your story comes out, or just everyone's stories. Like you think you're helping in a certain way, and then it just, people just take totally different things from it, and you can just help people in totally unexpected ways. That's so awesome. So how did that journey, obviously a tough journey of learning to walk again, how did that help build your confidence and your mental toughness?
The biggest thing it helped me do is redefine my relationship with success and failure. So I realized failing is not a defeating thing. I failed so many times. I fell over in the hydro pool and was under the water more times than I count. But each failed step I took, I was actually closer to success because I had a lot of nerve damage to my right leg. I can't feel it very well. So I had to completely be a beginner on something that I knew how to do my whole life and hit the reset button. So what it taught me about confidence is that comes through curiosity, and curiosity is connected to vulnerability and courage. And you have to be vulnerable to let go of what you know. I had to let go of how I knew how to walk so I could learn how to walk again. And through that process of being really vulnerable, failure can be very painful, and you can quite easily go to, this is never going to work, I can't do it, everyone's right, and go into that negative spiral. But if you change that perspective with failure and go, okay, that was my first attempt at learning, so that didn't work, let's come back and try again, you actually build your confidence. Because each time you fail, you're excited because you're like, okay, I'm one step closer because I can take that option off the list. Let's go to the next option. I can take that option. Yeah. Failure becomes a process of elimination to success.
Yeah. Yes, I love that, elimination to success. And I like to think too that the only way to actually fail is to, one, never try at all, or two, to quit. Like you're not actually failing, you're just learning. So exactly. Learning, and we could still call it failure, but I think that true failure is until the day that you decide to quit and be in a wheelchair for the rest of your life, you hadn't actually failed, which is can be applied to anything that people are working on, which is so powerful. So you've achieved a lot since your accident, as you're talking about, both in university, but what might surprise people is you've also done a lot of sports and achieved a lot in sports as well. So do you want to tell us a bit about that? Because I think that's a great positive win for everyone that's like, oh no, she's never going to walk again, sort of thing. And what's been your biggest achievement so far since your accident?
My biggest achievement would have been last week, or not last weekend, the weekend before, where I actually ran a half marathon, so 21.1K.
During lockdown?
Yeah. In a 5 meter radius, just around and around and around. So
it's a bit boring. Your scenery's repeating itself.
Yeah, look, it actually worked well because it was a safe option, because I wasn't sure if my hip and my nerve damage in my body was actually going to be able to do that. It was quite comforting to know, and helped with my courage to do it, that if anything happened, I was only a few K away from the car at any one time. Like the furthest I got away from the car in the circle was like 2.5K from the car. So that was like my safety blanket, I guess. And then other sporting achievements, I've done a 100K bike ride on my road bike, which was a massive, massive achievement. So what I learned in hospital was the power of pushing through not only externally placed limiting beliefs, but your own personal limiting beliefs, and just really leaning into them and challenging them one step at a time. And with the 100K bike ride and the half marathon, exactly what I did. If I ran 5K, the next day I'd go out and run 5.5K and then 6K, and just keep going. This is my limit. How do I push it? Even if it's an extra 100 meters, how do you just keep pushing yourself?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so powerful, because I bet people weren't expecting that. You're just out doing 100 Ks and marathons and stuff. But it's great too that you do still, have that backup option to keep yourself safe of, being close to your car. So do you want to tell us a bit more about your business and what that involves and what you do there with your coaching and speaking?
Yeah. So with my business, I have 2 streams. I work with corporates to do professional development days about courageous leadership of self and team. And I absolutely love doing that and seeing how that transforms the relationships within corporate teams. And then I do one-on-one coaching as well with anyone that's just trying to transform those fears into courage, really. People that are really stuck with, I'm too scared to do this. I have a dream, but I'm scared and therefore not good enough. And all that negative self-talk that talks us out of achieving our remarkable potential. So I love doing one-on-one coaching with those people to get through those, what I call courage blocks. Yep. And then I've also got a courage club, which is group coaching pretty much. So everyone in the club, each month we set a goal, a courageous goal for that month. We talk about the blocks that we're experiencing. We advise each other if other people have experienced that block. The community supports each other. And then we celebrate our progress. And at the end of the month, we just get together and virtually, obviously, and celebrate what we've achieved. I jump in there once a month and do a live call to talk about positive psychology stuff and answer any questions or do anything like that. Those calls are quite general and just whichever way the group wants to take them, really.
Yeah, that's so cool. And do you want to tell us a bit about your what made you want to set up your not-for-profit Women in Trades? Because I think that's really cool. Like, that's a cool thing. And like, why not have more women in trades?
Exactly. So putting my accountant hat on, and my corporate job was in manufacturing. So in Australia, we've got massive skill shortage issues across trade-based industries of manufacturing, construction, mining. And I always saw that as an issue for future growth of not only the company that I work for, but the industry in general. So I started doing some research into what's happening, and I discovered females only represent 2% of skilled trade workers in Australia. And I just thought that was shocking, because it's such a great, lucrative, high-paying career. And so many females struggle with financial security. In Australia, the largest rising cohort of homelessness is females. So I thought, what's going on here? We've got a massive financial problem within our female demographic, and then we have this massive skill shortage over here within skilled trades. Why are they not going together? And a lot of it's down to cultural issues, the culture of bullying and harassment, and culture of silencing in these industries. So I put my positive psychology hat on and thought, great, let's work with corporates about their culture, improve that, and then on the other side of the coin, work with the female demographic to create awareness about the opportunities out there, about all the different trades, and then start connecting them with the organisations that we're working with that are not perfect, but are conscious that they need to change their culture and going to work on changing their culture, and have these girls, young girls and women go into these organisations being willing to be part of the change program as well, like knowing it's not perfect, knowing they're going to have to do some hard work, but knowing that the organisations will want to work with them to make sure they're changing their culture.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I think I can relate to that too, because before I was coaching, I was in the knitwear trade, creating, designing, and running the machines for knitwear. And that's going into that, because I did a fashion degree, I thought that was going to be very female dominated because it's fashion. And then when I get into it, it was very male dominated, because it's actually more about the mechanics and the engineering and the running of the machines. Like, it was only the very recently that, they'd actually ever hired, the company I'd worked for, I was one of the first females they'd ever hired kind of on that side of things. And I was like, yeah. And I think what the work you're doing, and that's so powerful, because I'm like, I might have stayed in the industry longer. There'd been people like you around, but it's kind of how I got into coaching too, just getting my head in the right space. And I was like, no, I've got to go over here, because that whole culture, that once you're in a male dominated industry, it's just so hard to get to where you need to be and have that support when you're like the only one doing what you're doing. So
yeah,
so awesome. And hopefully you do help more females build up the courage and the strength to push through and get more females doing all those trades, because you're right, there's such a massive opportunity there.
And it helps the industry in whole, because that culture, that toxic masculinity culture, is starting in Australia to affect the younger male generation too. So in construction in Australia, we lose a male every second day to suicide, and men are 6 times more likely to die from suicide than an on-site accident. So that's just screaming that these cultural issues are not only being barriers of entry to females, but they're affecting the demographic that's in the industry as well. So culture is just so incredibly important for people's mindsets.
Yeah, you're so right. And my partner's experiencing, he's just changed jobs. So he's a builder, and he's just changed jobs, and he's finding that there's those old school men, and he's trying to learn new things in this new job, and they're just running him into the ground, and they don't understand. They're like, why don't you know? And he's like, I haven't done this before, please show me. And they're like, well, you should know. And it's like, well, I don't, so can you show me?
Yeah, exactly. And you don't create that psychologically safe space for people to learn, and we thrive through learning. That's
exactly
what being human is, learning.
Yeah, that's so powerful. Well, thank you so much for sharing. We'll bring Shereen back on now. Hello, Shereen. So we're going to talk about confidence. So I'll ask Shereen first a question, and then you, Hacia. So Shereen, what does confidence mean to you? What does it mean to be confident?
Yeah, I think it's about an inner strength. So sort of coming from a place of knowing who we are and knowing I've got this is really confidence to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that line. I always share it with people. I'm like, you've got this. It's like my go-to line. And what about you, Hacia? What does confidence mean to you?
For me, confidence is closing your eyes and stepping outside of your comfort zone, knowing that you'll be able to do it, having that self-faith, but also the faith in the support tribe around you, that if you step outside this line and you fall over, you've got the support network to pick you up, dust you off, and put you back on your feet.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I love that. So, Shereen, have you got a favourite book or podcast that you would like to share with everyone?
Yeah, and Hacia's going to love it because I've studied positive psychology as well. And it's actually, there's a beautiful book by Barbara Fredrickson called Positivity. And I just love it. And it's all about, she talks about self-love. She talks about our positivity bias to counteract that negative thing. And it's just a beautiful and easy to read book for people who aren't familiar with things in this field as well. So positivity, definitely.
That's cool. And do you have a favourite person you like to follow on social media or anything?
I like to follow people I know is really, so people that I've met is my thing. So definitely coaches who I've worked with is my thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I forgot to say too, that it was a great mix this week, because you both do have quite similar stories, that you both, had these injuries that have led on to your coaching and, totally changed your lives around. So it actually worked out quite well that you guys sharing similar stories, which is awesome. So, Hacia, do you have a favorite book or podcast?
So my favorite podcast is the Mindset Mentor by Rob Dial. Really love that podcast. And favorite book, I've got so many of them. I love the writing of Margie Worrell, who's an Australian. She does a lot of stuff about, like, her book Train the Brave is awesome. And then, of course, Brene Brown. You can't go past beautiful Brene Brown.
Yeah, when you were talking about courageous leadership earlier, I was like, I bet she's going to talk about Brene Brown at some point.
Yeah,
And do you have
her
a
work
favourite
on
person you like to follow?
would be Brene Brown as well. I love Simon Sinek, as like being in the corporate space. What he's doing around changing kind of the concept of leadership is fantastic as well. So Brene Brown, Margie Roral, Simon Sinek, they're kind of my top three.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Shereen, what advice would you give to someone who's wanting to build their confidence but they're not quite sure how?
I think at the core of self-confidence is self-love. And the way that we start to build self-love is acceptance. I think, and just knowing that every part of us, even those bits that feel icky, the bits that are blocked, the bits that, we don't like, are all welcome and they're all valid. Yeah. And it's when we bring them in and love them all that we build that love and then that confidence. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. And what about you, Hacia?
For me, it links back to make sure you're defining success for yourself and do that every single day. So for me, sometimes success was standing up, sometimes it's doing a half marathon, but I felt confident every day because I was defining what success looked like for me today, taking into account what happened yesterday, what's happening tomorrow, what's happening mentally, emotionally, and physically with me. And I'm confident to show up for the day then because I know what success is going to look like just for me, not society, not parents, just for me.
That is so powerful because it's always different, even just what your partner might think success looks like can be totally different to you, which is something you want to talk about with them quite often. But yeah, definitely making sure that success is for you and not for someone else is very important. Otherwise, you're just setting yourself up to fail because you're going by someone else's standards. So that's great. So Shereen, how can people find you and connect with you?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I'm all over those. So at Facebook, it's just Recast Coaching and Shereen_Recast. And Instagram, I'm on there a lot. I have a website as well, recastcoaching.com.au. People can reach out on any of those and message and chat and book a free chat with me. Yeah.
Awesome. And what about you, Hacia?
So I've got a website which is haciaatherton.com, and then I'm also on LinkedIn and Instagram as well, which are both just Hacia Atherton. Having a unique name, it's easy to get handles.
Yeah, same with me. Although on Instagram, I couldn't get my full name, Bronte Hamilton. I had to go with my middle name. It was already like, how dare there be another Bronte Hamilton out there on Instagram?
Wow, there you go. I
think there's like 7 of me on Facebook too. I looked it up once. And I was like, where in the world are they? It's so true. So, Shereen, what's the best advice you've been given or like the favourite quote that you like to live by?
Yeah, I really love in terms of confidence that saying, what other people think of you is none of your business. And because it really keeps us in our own lane, I think, of like, hang on, it only matters what I think. It only matters how I go about doing things. The only person I need to sort of come back to on any matter is me. And really that keeps us in ourself and making decisions from our perspective. So I love that.
That's great. And that leads back into that whole success for yourself, not for other people too, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And Hazel, what about you?
I'm going to tap into my athletic background here. The favorite thing is motion is lotion, and that doesn't just apply to your physical body. Getting out there and having a walk does incredible things for your mind and everything. So especially when you're feeling really stuck, physically moving your body does incredible things for also physically moving your mindset.
Yeah, that's so cool. And do you have any final words that you'd like to share with us? Anything you want to share before we go, Shereen?
I think that it's never too late to start trying to improve. It's never too late to grow, because that's what all of this is about, that we all do as coaches. It's about growing and improving, and it's just one step forward. You can start from wherever you are today. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And you, Hacia?
Mine's definitely have the courage to dream and then write those dreams down, which will turn them into a goal, and strategically go away and chip away at those goals one step at a time. Always being committed to your goal, but really flexible in your approach. Bit like what we said with failure. If it doesn't work one way, go to plan B. If you get to plan Z, then go to plan 1.1 and go through all the numbers. Just keep going. Just never give up on yourself. Just stay committed to those dreams and goals.
Yeah, and just learn to enjoy the journey as you go.
Oh yeah, that's the greatest part of it. The journey is the greatest part of it.
Yeah. Well, thank you both so much for joining us this morning and sharing. I'm sure everyone's taken away so much from all of that, because you both had so much to share, lots of positivity and mindset, which is awesome. So thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.